Hi, good morning. We are reading The Mystery of History, Volume 4. We're reading and chatting our way through. We are on page 10. Starting again, this is our second attempt to do this. In the 1700s, about 1732, with the 13 colonies of North America. Okay, so we just talked about that. We're looking at the New World, and the term New World is a little bit tricky because it wasn't new and it wasn't a world, because there were already native peoples that were inhabiting America since the Ice Age. And we had discussed that the Ice Age was a result of Noah's flood. After Noah's flood, there were the sky was just covered in thick clouds that caused the earth to cool a great deal, and that people started spreading out after the Tower of Babel, when the Lord told them, hey, it's time to spread out like I've asked you to. And after the Tower of Babel, then they obeyed. So there were already people in the New World, in America. But to the Europeans, America was new, and it was a new world. It offered a fresh start to the Europeans who were adventurous enough to cross the Atlantic. And we had just mentioned that it was very adventurous to cross the Atlantic, because that was a time, the ships aren't like they are today. Those ships, it was very hard. It was a very hard journey to cross the Atlantic. But they crossed to colonize a new land with hopes, dreams, and just a few bare necessities. I really don't know how they did it. I mean, they just brought just a couple things. It's not like they had running water or a town already established. They were coming to, wilderness, barren land. Not barren, but barren in terms of people. There were the American Indians there, but I guess what I mean is they weren't welcomed by a bunch of people that they already knew into a town. And I do apologize. The pollen is bothering Cruz today, so you'll have to just be patient. He's just doing some sneezing. Okay, so let's see here. In chronological order, according to when they were founded, this is the story of the 13 colonies of North America that were firmly established by 1732. The first colony founded was Virginia. Sir Walter Raleigh named the colony in the late 1500s after Elizabeth I, who was called the Virgin Queen of England. It was 1607 when the legendary Captain John Smith settled the village of Jamestown on the coast of Virginia under the Virginia Company of London. Determined to stay alive in this untamed land, Captain John Smith forbade his men to eat unless they worked. I think we read about this already.
Yes.
His strict work ethic made a difference, and Jamestown, Virginia, survived to become the first lasting colony in the New World. The Virginia colony is sometimes called the Jamestown colony. The Virginia Charter stated that one of their purposes was to promote the Christian religion to such people as yet live in darkness and miserable ignorance, that's really harsh, of the true knowledge and worship of God. The Jamestown colonists, that's too loud, lived up to their mission when they shared Christ with Pocahontas, the famous Native American girl who brought corn to the near-starving settlers, embraced Christianity, and married one of the settlers. Who did she marry?
She married, I forget his name. He was some sort of captain.
Captain John Smith.
Oh.
I think it was him. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had a John in his name.
And her well-known story is in volume 3. Now, do you remember why they said they had to work or they couldn't eat?
Because a lot of them said that they were too gentlemanly to work.
A lot of them were from a class of people who were of the mindset that they don't get their hands dirty and work. So they would just sit around and let the other people work. And yet the colony was about to starve to death and they were just going to let it and not help, which to me is amazing. I don't understand that mindset. The second colony to be established was the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The Pilgrims get credit for its founding in 1620. And remember, we have our ancestors, our great-great-grandparents were Pilgrims and what they called strangers. So we had both Pilgrims and strangers in our family.
Stranger name was sort of mean.
The stranger name is a bit mean. Because they didn't call themselves strangers, they just called themselves English or just people. The Pilgrims get credit for its founding in 1620 when they famously landed at Plymouth. Seeking religious freedom, they ventured to the New World on the Mayflower. The Pilgrims were a mixture of Puritans, separatists, and strangers. Like the Jamestown settlers, they too had a famous Native American help them. Do you remember his name?
The famous Native American. But wait, don't tell me. Squanto.
Squanto. Caleb, do you remember Squanto?
Yeah.
He was a prisoner of the British, which allowed him to learn the language. And now here she starts saying into calling people white and black. So we don't call people white or black because, number one, the people with light khaki skin color, that's their color is not white. And people with dark brown skin, well, in fact, they're not actually black. And we believe that actually increases lines of division when you throw someone into a category of white or black and you don't know their history and you don't know them and you're calling them a color that they are in fact not. So, anyway, Squanto befriended the Pilgrims. And because Plymouth thrived, thousands of Puritans migrated to Massachusetts and the area which is presently known as Maine. Maine broke away from Massachusetts in 1820, so that was 200 years later after the Pilgrims settled there and formed Massachusetts.
And you said 1820?
Yes, in 1820. Under John Winthrop, he was a Puritan governor. The towns of Boston and Salem grew rapidly. And you may recognize the name Salem. This is the town known for the tragic incident in 1692 when 19 people were hanged for supposed witchcraft. The town was nearly ruined by fear and distrust among the colonists. We're going to go over the third colony, let's see, and maybe the fourth colony, and then we'll stop there. The third colony is New Hampshire, which first began to take shape in 1622. When two merchants in England, Sir Fernando Gorges and Captain John Mason, they received permission from King James I to start fishing and timber colonies in North America. While neither Gorges nor Mason ever set foot in North America, their financial vision, what's a financial vision mean?
Doesn't financial mean like money?
Yeah, so they had a vision and they had the money to make the vision happen. It was powerful enough to lure English settlers into crossing the Atlantic and setting up homes in 1623. Later, in the bleak winter of 1637 to 1638, John Wheelwright also began to settle in New Hampshire after he was banished from Boston. He was banished because he defended his sister-in-law's controversial religious views. So yes, she says there was religious persecution in the colonies. You see, while the early Pilgrims had hoped to practice their Christian faith freely, The Puritans who moved to the Massachusetts Bay Colony were divided by differences in religious views. And these differences meant that many were banished, like John Wheelwright, and they established other colonies on the coast of North America. Wheelwright, by the way, eventually moved to Massachusetts, where he lived for the rest of his life. I think that's a little hypocritical. They're here for religious freedom, and yet they banish people because they're not agreeing. Now, I don't know, because I get it that, I mean, my question is, was he trying, I don't know, because I don't know the whole story, but was he trying to force his views on the colony? Because if they're trying to worship God, that's one thing. And, you know, God should be king of your whatever type of community that you have, which our country, God is not king of our country, though he should be. But I'm just wondering, because it seems like he was still, I don't know, did he still believe in God? Did he just have a minor difference? Because a lot of Christians get caught up over minor differences when we should be worshiping just Jesus. I don't know. Thoughts about that?
What did you say?
Do you have thoughts about that?
So about, like, the hypocritical thing?
Yeah.
I think that they had gotten influenced by the English. When the English persecuted them, they had anger. Like you said, hurting people hurt people.
Hurting people do hurt people. That's true. I just wonder, you know, what exactly was going on, because she doesn't really go into it here. Because it's different if he's trying to kind of say they wanted that to kind of govern their community by the laws, but by what God says. And he says, well, I don't believe in God and I don't think we should do that. That's different, because he's trying to undermine who? The laws of God. That's different than saying, well, yeah, I agree with the laws of God, but I don't think that you should have to wear a dress to church. I think I'm not coming naked. I should just be able to come in what I think is modestly appropriate. But giving people freedom to do that without undermining what the Lord says. I don't know. So there's a line there that's difficult to kind of decipher where it is. All right, let's go over the fourth colony. We'll stop after that. The fourth colony was New York. Like New Jersey, it was originally settled by the Dutch. As a matter of fact, in 1624, it was called New Amsterdam, after the city in Holland. Tradition says, however, that a Dutchman named Peter Minuit solidified the founding of the colony in 1626 when he bought Manhattan. Manhattan is a borough in present-day New York City. So he bought it from the Native Americans for the equivalent of $24 worth of goods. Knowing the size of New York City today, that's astonishing.
I know, it's just that would be like me being able to buy New York for $24. Pretty much just about everyone can.
Well, a neighborhood in New York, not all of New York. But even buying a neighborhood in New York, that's amazing if you could buy it for $24. The Dutch and the British squabbled, meaning had conflict over the area for many years until King Charles II of England claimed it. He claimed it New York in honor of his brother, the Duke of York. The Duke of York, by the way, later became King of England and Scotland.
That was nice.
Well, not really, because it looks like he's just taking it from them. He's claiming it. Yeah, he's naming it after his brother, but he's like, I'm taking that land from you that you bought. Known as James
But how could he just do that?
Because he's the king and these are the English colonies. Known as James the Seventh in Scotland, this is what he's talking about, the Duke of York, became James the Seventh in Scotland. He was the king who persecuted the Scottish Covenanters that we learned about in Volume 3. Okay, so we're going to stop there. We're on page 12, but do look, let's look at this little map here. We've got, here's New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Is that Maryland? Yeah, Maryland, Virginia. Now notice Virginia, that little line is a line for West Virginia, but at first this was just all Virginia. North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So the white are the southern colonies, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. The middle colonies are Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. There's Delaware. And then the northern colonies are Rhode Island, Massachusetts, where's New Hampshire, where is Connecticut? Okay, where is New Hampshire? Oh wait, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Okay, so we're gonna stop there, and we will.
We've been to Rhode Island.
We haven't been to a bunch of those places. We will pick back up tomorrow on page 12. Have a good day.